I didn't even know about it really until the last minute, and Diana decided she needed to have me help her because she wasn't happy because they pulled a rack of old stock clothes for her to wear. And the diva doesn't do that. I had done a TV special when she was still a Supreme, just before she broke out with the Temptations, and we got an Emmy for those costumes, and so that was nice. And then her nightclub acts and all of that. It was about three or 4 years, and then they were making the movie, and it didn't occur to anybody that she would want special designs. A really small budget. I have a feeling Motown chipped in a few bucks for this one, but it was tough because it was last minute. I mean, we probably had about 2 weeks before they started shooting, but it was fun to do. Some of it could look more authentic, and I learned a lesson on that one. No matter what they're wearing or what the scene is, make sure their underwear is period. She's absolutely gifted. And she's amazing. She wasn't that she'd never acted before. She'd never been in a movie before, which was you just go, how can she just do that? And she's that complete. But she was in high school when she became a Supreme, or she was out of high school. She quit high school, I think, is what happened. Even when she was just starting out, you could put the most outlandish thing on her, and she'd wear it on stage like she'd been wearing it all her life. She had that quality going for her. And she's a lot more gifted than I think than she really thinks she is. Although she thinks she's pretty good.
So when you are doing the costumes for just number one on the call sheet, how do you make sure everyone else is in the same film?
Well, that's the problem. I hate doing that. I hate it more than anything. I hate doing just one person in a show because it never goes with the rest. And it backfires always. It wasn't as bad on this one as it could be, but who knew the other singer in the club was going to have a skirt and blouse on? We thought she'd have an evening gown on, and there's nothing you can do. You just don't get the information.
Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of communication.
Well, there was quite a bit. Norma was really lovely, and when the whole thing kind of blew up, it wasn't her fault, and she was quite helpful and lovely, but. What are you going to do? I mean, it still is a different person doing it.
Yeah. I think we've probably all been in that position.
Of course. Of course, you dress somebody up and everybody's sitting around in a T-shirt and jeans. And what do? You have to scramble around.
Yeah. What you said there was no prep time, and then we were looking at your sketches, and you said you were doing them a few a day, and things were changing all the time. What was that process like?
Well, I did them all at once and tried to present the whole thing, but then they kept rewriting. If you noticed in the movie, and it's one of the big faults in the movie, all of a sudden the writing changes about halfway through, and it all gets kind of sloppy and messy, and Motown started kind of running the show, and we had days when Berry Gordy was directing. Think about that.
Well, I guess famously the. Paramount pulled the plug, right? And
there must have been.
Had to
I don't know what the problem was. It was taking too. I don't know what it was.
I think I watched the special features. And
you
they said
must know more than
that.
I did.
He went to New York with the film to show Paramount, and they weren't happy. They said we're closing it down, and he just wrote a check for what they had already spent. And that's probably when.
That's probably why that was all happening.
Motown took over. Yeah.
But it just got kind of weird. I thought.
Yeah. Is there
but it was successful. It was very successful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all those Oscar nominations, pretty great.
Well, that was that she really thought she was going to win because they'd convinced her she was winning. And in
was it Liza who won? Was that year? Cabaret?
It might have. Was it Cabaret that year?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, what happened was, Motown was like putting ads in the trades every single day, full page ads. Now we're used to that. We see that all the time now. But in those days, that was considered very bad taste. And they were like pushing so hard that I think it kind of gave people a bad taste in their mouth. I know it did.
Well, she went on to, was Mahogany her next film? And what was your... What was your involvement in that? I know it says costumes designed by Diana Ross.
No, I had no. No, when Diana was in high school, that's what she wanted to be, was a fashion designer, and she's never quite gotten over it. But that's another story. But she was doing the movie, and she said, "I'm going to design this myself." And I said, "Okay, fine. Well, would you like us to make the clothes?" "Oh yes, please." So we made all the clothes. But oh God, it sounds so bitchy, but I'm going to tell you anyway. She hired herself a young, cute young boy designer, and they bought a big Erte book. And they'd go from page to page and says, "Well, we'll make one of those, and we'll make one of those, and one of these. And this one could be purple, and that one could be lime green." And this went on for a few weeks. And it was just, we all looked around, okay. And that's what they did. And that was just the fashion show. And then when it came time for her clothes, there wasn't any time. So she went out and shopped them all and got credit for the whole thing. So.
And who did the rest of the film? That was back in the day when
I have no
when you
idea.
had costume supervisors kind of doing
I have
that.
no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. That wasn't my problem.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. When you were sitting here watching this, and I know you just watched it, was it earlier today or
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
And tonight I want to commit suicide watching that thing.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, is because when we're watching our own work, it's always like, what were there days? Are you watching it going, God, I remember that day and how awful that?
Well, it's 45 years ago.
So we will forget.
I was actually young then. But it was exciting to be nominated and all that. But there's some fabulous nominations, So.
Poseidon Adventure.
Well, yeah.
The hell?
No, that one's really the most beautiful. Poseidon Adventure,
amazing.
Especially Shelley Winters.
Is there an overriding arc to the costumes? Are you telling a story of her, or how are you telling the story of her rise to fame and struggles with addiction?
Well, I had read that book that it was based on years before that, so I was familiar with the book. I don't know why I read it, but I did, and we just tried to follow the period and follow the part of her life. And I think, when she's playing that little 12, 13-year-old girl, I think she's fantastic. The way she moves and those skinny little legs, and really, really adorable. And I think everything goes along fine, and then it kind of goes a little haywire in the script, I think.
Yeah, I didn't really notice that when I watched it earlier this week. You had mentioned that before, so then I was aware of it. But I don't know that it's noticeably falling apart towards the second half of the movie.
Well,
until it's brought up.
It's gradual, and then before you know it, you're listening to the dialogue, and you're going, "Really, really?"
Yeah. Then you.
Hey man, hey man, hey man, hey man.
Bad improv a little bit.
It just got. There were people writing the script that shouldn't be writing the script. They had no reason to. Yeah. But they were executives.
Yeah. I'm curious if there was any discussion about the racial themes in the film. Was there any discussion between?
Not for me. No.
No. And in your own personal life, did you see did people treat Diana differently than they treated Cher or Mitzi? Did you ever?
No. I mean, Diana was always a goddess as far as the audiences go.
Yeah.
I did her first solo nightclub acts, and we were going to different cities and working on that. And no, I mean, Diana is a huge star. I think sometimes her personality has kind of screwed up her goddess levels.
Stature.
If that makes any, does that make any sense? You don't have to answer. She's been working with Diana just recently, right? Yeah. Like last week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, she in the special feature, she speaks quite nicely about your work and how it contributed to the film.
Listen, I've always spoken nicely about her work, but sometimes she I don't know. She's difficult sometimes, but doesn't mean she's not absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we all have
there's other difficult
moments.
people in this room who are brilliant. What was your biggest takeaway from designing this film?
Oh, listen, I was so busy when I was doing this film. I was doing, Sonny and Cher show and a Carol Burnett show, all in the same week, every week.
I sort of hoped this was done in the hiatus.
No, it wasn't at all.
Wow.
It wasn't at all. That's why Ray came in and did it with me, because I couldn't have been there enough, to make it really happen. So we just did it together. We'd done other shows and other movies and things together, so it was okay. But he was a big help, and of course she adored him much more than me, actually.
More than you adored Ray, or more than she adored
No, more than she adored him.
Well, Elizabeth Courtney's must have been your sort of secret weapon.
Well, it was. We had our own place to make the clothes, and it was quite fabulous going that 20-some years or more, 30 years of having your own workrooms.
Yeah, it was a great time.
I'm suffering now. I'm doing shows in New York, and you have to go from place to place to place to place.
Yeah.
And then you're not sure you're going to be done.
Yeah. You just mentioned Raymond, so I want to ask, how did that collaboration with Raymond begin? You guys did decades together.
Well, actually, I met him. I met him at a guild meeting.
Really?
Yeah. When we used to have the guild meetings at the Linton Center on Sunset Boulevard near Crescent Heights. It's not even, the building's not even there anymore, and there were like 35 people in the guild. So that was really, and we'd have, eat it. I know, but it would be, all the old timers were there. Howard Shoup and Edith Head and all those people, and I was like 22 or something when I got in. So it was very exciting. But I met him there, and then I used to see him around, and then I went to work at NBC for a little bit, and we got to be friendly, and he asked me if I would be the assistant on the Judy Garland show. Yeah. And that was the best job I ever had, because I worked with everybody that I would work with for the next 20 years or more. Nice. That was really fun. Different choreographer.
Was he at NBC then as well?
Rhett was the assistant head of the department in NBC. So anytime he had a project at NBC, he was always helping, all the time helping. And he never stopped. He did that for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Like all great designers, I think your work has a real consistency. When I watch show or a film, I know that it's your work.
You do?
I do, yeah. I was just wondering where your design aesthetic came from. Where do you think?
Movies.
Just watching movies.
As a little kid, that's all I ever did.
Yeah.
You didn't see me in the football field.
I suppose, yeah.
Oh, yes, you did.
Oh,
Cheerleader.
well, yeah.
Yell leader.
He's right. Yeah.
That's so funny.
He's right.
And I know you because of Robert Turturese. You have mentored some really great designers, Robert and Daniel Orlandi, to name a couple.
Right.
How do you find that kind of talent, and how do we as
you just
mentors
find somebody you can get along with, and that you can, that'll help you out. Just have stuff to do. That's all.
And how do we as mentors nurture that talent?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
I hate to see somebody get really good and leave, but that happens. It really does. Is this on or not?
It is. Yeah, I remember I worked with Albert Walski, and he said he always wanted to find his assistants. He always wanted them to want to leave.
Well, no, if you're ready to branch out, you should. You really should. But sometimes, I don't know. I've had assistants that weren't much use either way, and then other ones that are fabulous. I won't mention any names.
I might remember a couple. That's funny. So you were starting as an illustrator. That's how you.
I did, yeah. Right out of school. So I was like 22 when I got my first job at Paramount, which was just crazy. Working in Edith Head's offices, and it wasn't for her. It was for another designer that was just. It was my first job, really. They were just using space. They had a couple of offices there for me to do the drawings. And so, along with having my first job, I had Edith Head coming in every day looking to see what I was doing and checking it out. And when that job was over, a week or so later, she called me in to take someone's place for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, you can't get better than that. And I was already booked into Jean-Louis for the Marilyn Monroe film that never got finished.
Let's Make Love?
Something's got to give.
Yeah.
And then I did a whole bunch of Doris Days and stuff for him at the same time. So So it was just, I got a really good start. And it's wonderful working for working designers because you really watch them and you watch what the decisions they make and how they let you loose or not let you loose. I mean, Edith was great. She hired me because I was, all the old ladies that worked for her didn't know how to do hookers and showgirls. So I always got to do those, and that was fine with me.
Did you immediately say, "Oh, I want to do that. Costume design is where I'm going now"?
Yeah, no, I knew that already.
You did?
Yeah, I knew that in high school, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the bummer when you do move up to costume designer is we don't get to work with other costume designers. I learned so much from assisting and being a costume supervisor myself that I kind of miss being around other designers and learning from them now.
Yeah, I don't know. I worked around so many designers for so many years. With Ray and I, we were in business together, and Rhett was there, and we were all doing different shows at different times.
Well,
and we all knew what the other one was doing.
Yeah, and at Elizabeth Courtney, there was such
Right.
a family and such a everybody helped each other. Because we would come in, everyone would bring their alterations in, or Robert would come in and other costume designers, and if you couldn't find something, Rhett would say, "I know where
he
I
knew
can
exactly
find that,
where
or,
to find
or let
everything.
me dye that for you,"
Right,
or
right.
it was
Yeah.
a great place for me to sort of.
I never died for anybody,
no.
anything.
I've done that.
But I've been known to do sketches for other designers.
No.
Yeah.
If you could go back, you're thinking about telling your younger self one thing about the beginning of your career, what would that be? Like advice to yourself.
Oh, go work for somebody that you like what they do, and watch and listen, and watch when they make mistakes and why they made the mistake, or when it's really successful and what they do that makes it so successful. Because you don't know those things until you're around it. Yeah. I used to listen to Edith. My office was so close. I listened to Edith Head, give her enchilada recipe, rather than see a producer, because that was more important to her to get that publicity. And I thought, that's a good idea, I guess. Publicity. Well, it doesn't hurt to be well known.
Well, I think we know Edith, but I think the rest of the world really, you're the face of us. Everyone knows.
Well, that's
Bob
very nice. I just got kind of lucky in the 70s. Look where we are now.
Yeah. Is there a proudest moment?
No.
No.
I don't.
A costume in the Smithsonian, perhaps.
Well, the Scarlett O'Hara curtain rod dress is in the Smithsonian, but I mean, how can you be? You can't be proud of that. You just sort of laugh about it, I mean, I have two things in the Smithsonian. I have the charwoman costume, and the funny curtain rod dress. Now, is that beautiful or classic or what? And I knew once I started doing Cher, I would never have a first lady gown because they would. Can you imagine what they would write?
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you wish you were known for more than just the curtain rod dress?
Well,
I mean, you are to us. Of
no,
course,
I don't care. I don't really care about that. But sometimes I wish that people would offer me things that weren't so obvious. You get put into a niche, and everybody does. It just happens, and if it's successful, you're stuck with it forever.
Yeah.
And so I don't worry about it now at my age.
Well, that's good to know that we'll get to that place where we're not thinking about that as much.
Oh, you have a long wait.
Yeah. You've been a guest host, a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. But I believe I remember a story of early in your career working with a drag queen as well, like one of your first jobs.
Where'd you hear that story?
I have been around a long time, longer than you remember. Is that anything you feel like?
Well, no. When I was at Chenard, which was before CalArts, and they had a costume design department, and it was kind of a small little department. But when people would call in and want some student to come in and do some work, they would look around and ask the heads of the departments who would be good, and I got sent out on a lot of funny things like that. And I got this Madame Exotica in Venice Beach, which was a very friendly, lovely black man who wanted me to do some wild costumes for her. But he couldn't. Oh no! Should I tell the whole thing?
I think you should tell the story.
No, but he was very upset because he had called me in, but then he couldn't fit anything in because he oh God, he'd gotten some flitter, glitter flitter in his foreskin, and he was infected. Now, isn't that funny?
It's.
How many fittings have you had like that?
One.
Did it hurt?
No. No, I did fit an actress about a week after New Year's, and she had glitter on her body, and I mentioned it. She goes, "Oh yeah, I haven't been home yet from New Year's Eve." Ooh. So beware of your glitter, I guess.
Well, in the old days, especially on television, we used to, if they had an old set of dance shoes, I'd cover it in silver flitter, and boy, did it look good. But then if the girl happened to kick her partner next to her, she had big blood coming down her, because I always used the jumbo flitter that had the little hard edges. So I stopped doing that after a while.
That was kind.
We have lots of good stories, but I wasn't expecting that one.
Yeah. I had a few, some coaching. Once your clothes showed up on set, did any of the other actors start saying, "Mr. Mackie, what about my clothes? Can you help me at all?"
Well, what do you mean clothes? When I was designing for certain people?
When Diana showed up in her costumes and they were so different than the rest of the cast, did you have other people trying to?
Well, no, not on that film. I didn't. No. When I started working with Cher, all of a sudden all these performers started coming and wanting things like hers. And you can't do that. You can't just do that.
Yeah.
That's why you're there, is because it's different.
Well, we've all seen that Tina Turner dress 1,000 different ways.
What,
right?
you mean the strippy one?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, a funny story about that is I got a call from Raquel Welch. Excuse me. And she was going to do a nightclub act, and she had this real hot number she was doing. And she says, I want to look like Tina Turner. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, like a cave woman, but beaded and whatever. Anyway, I got this call from Tina about a month later after Raquel had appeared on the cover of a French magazine in her Tina Turner dress. And of course, Tina hadn't seen it. She said, "Oh, I just saw the best dress on Raquel. I want a dress just like that." And I had to tell her, and I told her exactly what had happened. And it was fine because we weren't copying any particular dress. It was just the mood. And she was thrilled that Raquel wanted a dress and wanted to look like her.
Yeah. Well, you've had your clothes copied, but I also remember I was looking through there. I think at one time, was there a Bob Mackie calendar of like your ladies? And I remember I was at Courtney's and I was looking at different images of your work. And then I went to the grocery store. There was a great, you know what I'm going to talk about, right?
About the Anne Margaret?
There was a great picture of Anne Margaret in the calendar or in this book. And
no,
then I
worked the other way,
And I went to TV Guide, and Oprah was wearing it.
Yes,
right?
Oprah was on the cover of TV Guide, sitting on a wheelbarrow full of money or something. And I looked at it, and I went, and I said, this is crazy. This is Anne Margaret's body in the same dress. I mean, I had the photograph of Anne Margaret, and I had to find it, and there it was. And Anne Margaret had been on vacation, so she was a little tan, so they didn't have to even change her skin tone, And I called Anne Margaret's husband, and I said, "Have you seen that TV Guide?" And he hadn't seen it. He hadn't even noticed. And I told him about it. It was a big stinkeroo.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. Well, you don't just take a picture of Anne Margaret and put Oprah Winfrey's head on it. I mean, or anybody for that matter. I mean, those things, they're out there. You get caught.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to open up this to the audience if anybody had any questions for Mr. Mackie.
Got good questions?
Mildred.
So
My mother's name is Mildred.
When you were designing Miss Ross's costumes, did you have like a fabric company come in and you were like, I'm doing all this? Where did you get your textiles? Because they look really
Either off the
beautiful,
shelf
drippy.
or at the store.
Really?
You know, like anybody when you're in a hurry.
I didn't know if you had to like buy them like period fabric from like, you know, someone's archive, like some university's archive. Or,
Beverly Hills Silks and Wounds.
I mean, as long as you buy beautiful fabric, if it's supposed to be beautiful, you know, it's fine. You can be pretentious and say, oh, I have to get something from the period.
Sure.
But when you're only doing 30s, it's not quite so hard. You know, you can get beautiful silk, crepe-back satins, and wool crepes and things like that.
I just loved like the last silhouette of her white drippy like sequin number, and then the way that the red light hits it and blows it up.
That was
Sick.
white satin bugle beads on the bias, cut on the, you know, it was beaded on the bias. And since she started wearing those bias cut beaded dresses, she hasn't stopped even now. She never quite got over that.
And the blue number too, the blue with the chevrons.
Chevron, yeah, that's pretty fabulous.
It's Jersey.
It's Jersey, your Jersey.
I guess it was jersey or crepe, I'm not sure.
So
I
good.
can't remember.
Was that something that you saw her, like a Billy picture, or you just?
No, it wasn't.
You just
Billy,
designed it.
A Billy, you couldn't dress her like Billy. Billy usually looked kind of a mess. For the most
Yeah.
part. You know, now we see these Billie Holiday shows and stuff, and she's in a white beaded gown.
Sure.
And I thought, when did Billie Holiday ever really wear that?
Yeah,
It looks great with gardenias.
When Diana Ross played her.
Yeah.
And that last dress, I've certainly seen that dress reimagined quite a bit. Quite a bit.
I've been guilty of that.
Is that something like Madonna wore in the Oscars? Was she wearing
No,
something
well,
similar to that?
Madonna's was cut bias too, but it was strapless. It had a whole foundation in it. It was different. It was more Marilyn-y than whatever. And it pushed everything up and out and whatever. Diana, we didn't have to worry about that in those
Where are the
days.
costumes now? Did you guys?
Those-
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I
They
wonder-
they were a property of
Paramount?
Paramount, but I don't know if they're still around.
I'm just remembering when you're talking about the fabrics and things. The in the sketches, her first dress when she comes out of the brothel now as a new woman.
Right.
That's based on
That's based.
painting, or-
There's a Reginald Marsh is a fantastic artist from the 1930s, 20s and 30s, and he always painted the common people, the people at Coney Island, the people walking down the street, at the prize fights. I have a huge book of that, and it's full of the best information. If you're doing the 30s and you're doing real people, not glamorous Art Deco looking people, but real people. There's so much detail there, and I was going through the book and I saw that, and the title of the painting is High Yeller, and there's this black woman in this yellow dress, and originally Norma was going to have her in a black satin dress and a red boa, and I went, for a hooker, that's kind of, and I thought to myself, don't you think a poor girl who's just made some money wants to have the epitome of what she thinks would be the best Easter dress ever, with a hat to match and everything? And that's kind of where it came from. And I haven't ever copied a dress right off of a painting really before, but a lot of art directors in films use Reginald Marsh as inspiration for sets and things. And as it happened when I did Pennies from Heaven, the front of the movie house was from that, and the inside of the movie house, and then some other things. And then we also did some Hopper paintings as well. Yeah.
Great on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. His third Oscar nomination, Pennies from Heaven.
Yeah, it was a flop of a movie, but I got a nomination.
Such a great movie, though.
You never win with a flop movie, usually.
True. Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Yes.
Daniel?
Was there any of the costumes you made based on an actual dress of Billie Holiday?
No, Billie Holiday was not built like Diana Ross to begin with.
Yeah, but I mean, there's nothing that.
Not really, no. I've never seen a truly glamorous. Some of the things she wore in the 50s, I kind of liked the way they looked, but that was more forgiving, because of the full skirts and all of that. But no, it was Diana Ross. You have to go with your star. You can't just say, if a star doesn't look good in something or isn't right for her, that's who you have to go with. You can't just make her look like Billie Holiday. I'd have to put a huge body pad on her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today they would do that, but it's not necessarily making a better movie.
No, not really.
You want to see Diana Ross.
Well, in this case, you did. You really did. And I thought she was fabulously brave to let herself look the way she looked often, and especially as a young girl in the beginning. The only thing that I wish she hadn't is that wig that ate Chicago. Just got bigger and bigger.
It's out there. Yeah.
But Diana likes her wigs. Let's put it that way. One time I was early on in my little career. I was doing the Hollywood Palace, and she was on. No, actually, I was doing the King family. Who we shot a show in the Hollywood Palace, and they were rehearsing, and the Supremes were on, and Diana and the girls would come out every now and then, and once in a while Diana would have to make an announcement and stuff, and she would go along Hollywood Boulevard, and she obviously had bought like 20 wigs, and every time she came out, she had a different hairdo. But I just never quite forgot that one.
That's funny. Philip?
Question for you.
Yes.
So there's a lot of the costume illustrators now that are big fans of yours, and so I told them I'd ask this question, which is, now that we're in this kind of like age where we're going from traditional sketching to digital to sculpting, do you have any advice for them or any thoughts about how
I don't have any advice. I don't even have a computer, so I don't even know how to even begin to do that. And I drew all my life. I mean, I always drew since I was like in kindergarten, and and then I'd make little stage sets, and I hated the way I drew women, so I would buy paper dolls and then design the clothes and put on them, and kind of a funny thing. I had some Betty Grable paper dolls. You know who Betty Grable is? Yeah. Well, I had 2 sets of them. So one set I made the skin all brown and gave her black hair, so we could do these numbers in the movies that I always loved so much. When they had tight skirts and feather boas and they were doing Dixieland or whatever they were doing. Betty Grable was really good at it. Every now and then they'd make her all brown and give her black hair.
Yeah.
And I loved that.
Yeah.
So I had my own little Betty Grable. In her colored drag.
Yeah. On IMDb it says also you directed a show. Did you direct one show of something?
No.
Oh, that IMDb. It gives you an acting credit and a directing credit.
Directing. I've been a producer, things like that, but not a director. I directed my fashion shows when I had a ready-to-wear line. Yeah. And I always did way too much than we should in a fashion show, but I figure it's a show, give them some entertainment.
I got to work on one of those shows. When did you start your line, producing clothes for?
God, horrible. I hate fashion. But I got talked into it, and so then you get stuck with it. But I was doing it in the early 80s, and then I had done lingerie before that, and bathing suits and stuff. You get a name people know about glamour, and bathing suits are just, evening gowns without skirts.
It's good to remember. I write that one down. You got a question?
I did. So in the beginning of the film, she's got the little white gloves on with the yellow dress.
Right.
And as it goes on, she's wearing longer gloves. Was that to cover her track?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's even I asked Joe. I said, on the sketch, does she have black gloves with that gold dress? And he says, yes, she does. But that was part of it. It was a plot point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you do.
In the beginning, where she's little and she's got the gray sweater and the beautiful little collared ragged dress.
Uh-huh.
That was such a beautiful color.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a beautiful color, and I guess because it was.
Did it look too beautiful?
No, it didn't. It looked like that time for a little girl, when she would have.
Right, but it could have been an old dress, a hand-me-down dress,
Yeah, it could have been
you know, Goodwill dress, whatever. You know. Or usually it's somebody's dress that they've grown out of or whatever.
Yeah, it was.
She was pretty tiny.
It was so great against that gray, bulky sweater.
Right.
Did you make the sweater, or did you find a sweater?
No, we found the sweater.
Yeah.
Found it in stock at Paramount, actually.
Together.
It worked good. And she was amazing. I never quite get over it as she was as a child, and she completely went into it. She had no problem trying to be that way. That was so natural for her.
Yeah. Okay, I have another question.
Okay.
This is not on the film, but on the time cover Cher dress, the white feather dress.
Yes.
The dress of all life.
Yes.
Did you plan that dress for her to sit that way or kneel that
No,
way?
not at all. She was like squatting. Well, she was doing kind of a thing like that. Yeah. No, that dress, actually that dress was designed for Elizabeth Arden in Beverly Hills, and they decided, I did a whole bunch of windows when they opened I don't think it's even there anymore, but that was like in the 70s or whatever. And they didn't pick that dress. It was too wild for them to put in the window. And so it was just, the sketch was just sitting there. It wasn't even designed for Cher.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, Vogue magazine wanted to do a layout of different eras. And that was like, I guess, current era, supposedly the 70s or whatever. And we just made it. We made it really fast. And I couldn't even order feathers. I had to go through all my boxes and find, it was twisted vulture, all these feathers. Most people think it's an ostrich or whatever, but it's not.
Yeah.
And she didn't wear anything under it.
Oh,
Wow.
It looked like she was sewing into it.
No, it had a zipper. Yeah. And it was made out of silk souffle, and it's rotten now. It's in a box, just falling apart, because it was old fabric to start with.
Is there any last question?
I do have a question about the flowers and the hair.
Oh, the gardenias.
Yes. Were you responsible for that?
Well, I mean, kind of. I mean, you know, it's. I don't think she wore gardenias every single time, but it became her trademark. And I think the gardenia budget probably put the movie under. They were real gardenias. Maybe some of the long shots would have been. We got some beautiful French fake ones, but those weren't fake. The ones you saw weren't fake. They were real, yeah. And they never looked dead, thank God. Around on the edges, you know.
Well, thank you for all the time you've given me in my life, and thank you for the time you've given to all of us tonight.